The Midnight Fields. In a small, peaceful village at the edge of a forest, there lived a woman named Akisa. She was known to all for her kindness and beauty. By day, she would spend her time laughing and chatting with the villagers. The children loved her, always rushing to her house after school for sweets and stories. Everyone adored Akisa. She was a symbol of warmth and goodness. But as the sun set, something strange happened. Akisa would quietly leave the village and return to her house, where no one could see her. The villagers never asked why, respecting her privacy, but a curious mystery hung over her. No one knew what she did when night fell, but some began to whisper about her strange disappearances. Still, life in the village went on, and no one suspected the dark secret Akisa was hiding. When the moon rose high in the sky, Akisa would go to her secret room in her house. The soft light of the moon shone through the windows as she began her transformation. Her once radiant skin, which had made her the most beautiful woman in the village, started to wither and become dull. Her smile, which was kind and welcoming by day, turned cold and cruel. Her eyes, once full of warmth, grew hard and empty. Akisa was no longer the kind woman the village knew and loved. She was something far darker. Under the cover of night, Akisa became a powerful witch. Her true nature was revealed when she stood in front of an ancient mirror in her secret chamber. The magic flowed from her as she whispered ancient words, casting a spell. The spell reached out, slowly pulling the villagers' children from their beds. They woke up, their eyes wide open but empty. They moved like sleepwalkers, drawn towards Akisa's call. They didn't know why they were doing this, but their bodies followed Akisa's every command. They left their homes, walking through the quiet village, their footsteps silent against the cold ground. The children followed Akisa deep into the dark forest, their feet moving without question, their minds clouded by the spell. They didn't see the trees that passed them or the creatures hiding in the shadows. Their minds were lost in the trance that Akisa had put them in. Akisa led them to a hidden field deep in the heart of the forest. This field was no ordinary place. The moonlight shone brighter here, and strange plants grew in the soil. These plants glowed with an eerie light, casting an unnatural glow over the area. The fruits on these plants were like nothing the children had ever seen before. They were strange, with colors that didn't belong in nature: purple, blue, and red. The fruits pulsed as though they were alive. Akisa gave the children baskets and directed them to gather the strange fruits and plants. They obeyed without question, their hands moving as if they had done this many times before. They didn't speak, not even to each other. The only sound was the rustling of the leaves and the soft whispers of Akisa's commands. She watched them carefully, her twisted smile hidden in the shadows. When they finished, Akisa would take the baskets and walk away, leaving the children behind. As the first rays of dawn began to touch the sky, the children would return to their beds. No memory of what had happened, only a strange, deep exhaustion that made their bodies heavy. They didn't understand why they were so tired, but no one asked them. They simply went about their days, unaware of the dark magic that had been done to them. As the days passed, Juma, the village elder, started to notice something strange. The children were always tired. They were no longer full of energy, and their laughter was quieter than it used to be. They seemed lost in their thoughts, always dragging their feet as though they hadn't rested in days. Juma grew concerned and decided to keep a close watch on the children. One night, after the village had fallen into a peaceful silence, Juma stayed awake, hiding in the shadows. He waited, watching, wondering if he could find out what was causing the children's strange exhaustion. As the clock struck midnight, he saw them. The children, still in their pajamas, walked quietly out of their homes as if in a trance. They moved with a slow, steady pace, their eyes wide open but lifeless. They were headed into the forest. Juma followed them from a distance, his heart racing as he realized where they were going. He knew something was wrong. He had to see for himself. He followed the children until they reached the hidden field deep in the forest. He hid behind a large tree and watched, horrified as Akisa led the children into the clearing. The moonlight shone down on her, and in that light, Juma saw her true form. Her face, once kind and beautiful, was now twisted and cruel, her eyes glowing with dark power. She was no longer the Akisa the villagers knew. She was a witch. Juma returned to the village with a heavy heart. He called the elders together and told them everything he had seen. The village elders listened carefully, their faces grim. They knew that something had to be done to stop Akisa and save the children. They quickly began to make a plan. Juma told them about the mirror, a powerful tool used by witches. It was said that witches could not stand to look at their own reflection, for it showed their true nature. If they could somehow get Akisa to see her own reflection, they believed they could break her spell over the children and stop her magic. The elders agreed to work together to trap Akisa. They gathered supplies and made their way to the clearing in the forest where the children had been taken. When the night arrived, the elders set their trap. They placed a large mirror in the center of the field where Akisa had been leading the children. They covered it with a cloth, hiding it from the view, and waited in the shadows. The minutes passed slowly. The air was thick with tension, and the only sound was the wind rustling through the trees. Then, just as the clock struck midnight, the children appeared again, walking in their trance, following Akisa deeper into the forest. Juma awaited until the moment was right. As Akisa stepped into the clearing, he uncovered the mirror. When Akisa saw her reflection, she stopped in her tracks. For the first time, she saw what she truly was, a dark, twisted version of herself. Her face was no longer beautiful. It was monstrous, full of anger and hatred. The power that had held the children in her grip started to fade. They blinked their eyes and began to wake from their trance. Akisa let out a scream, her magic failing as the mirror revealed her true self. She turned toward the children, reaching for them, but they were no longer under her spell. Juma stepped forward, his voice steady as he said, "Leave this place, Akisa. We know who you really are." For a moment, Akisa's beauty returned, and she begged for mercy, but the villagers had seen the truth. They could no longer be fooled. Her heart was dark, and her magic was no longer strong enough to control them. With a final cry, Akisa disappeared into the shadows, leaving only the quiet night behind. With Akisa gone, the village returned to peace. The children no longer felt the strange weariness that had haunted them, and they slept soundly, free from her spell. Life in the village slowly returned to normal, but the villagers never forgot the lesson they had learned. They knew now that not everything that shines is good, and sometimes the kindest faces can hide the darkest secrets. The villagers grew closer, always watching out for one another, never forgetting what they had learned under the moonlight. The forest remained silent, but the memory of the witch in the midnight fields would live on in the hearts of the people forever.